What's up everybody, D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing another Toho Godzilla news and updates. Whether it's a Godzilla Minus 2 or not, that's part of the discussion today. But we're going to be doing another Toho Godzilla news and updates as director Takashi Yamazaki has shared some interesting details on the next film that lead to a lot of question on where things are heading. I also want to talk about when we might expect this next Godzilla movie, as I think we're narrowing in on that date fairly quickly. Let's get into it. Starting out, I want to show off some artwork like always, and this first piece comes to us from Alex Alsantar, and this is Godzilla at Sea. I think it looks great. I love the way the waves are splashing out around Godzilla. It looks so awesome, and obviously that sea chase is one of my favorite moments in Godzilla Minus One, so I thought this fan art was super exciting to come across. Next up, Eco posted this Godzilla Minus One poster art. Oh my gosh, I cannot even begin to imagine how much work went into this thing. It is so detailed. The more you look at it, the more details you see. It's wonderfully hand-drawn. I cannot believe this thing, and I'm not the only one who celebrated this, as actor Mio Tanaka, who plays Hota in Godzilla Minus One, also celebrated this artwork, thinking it was amazing. Sketching Steve Studios released this Rodan Minus One art. It's very much Rodan 1955. I love the Meganula and then Rodan sweeping in from the skies, a very classic Rodan design. I love Rodan, especially after King of the Monsters. I'm a huge Rodan fan. I would love to see like a Rodan Minus One, Yamazaki's take on Rodan, Yamazaki's take on Mothra. I think that would be fantastic. I would love to see a movie take Rodan back to his horror roots especially, and so I just wanted to shout this one out. I thought this was great. This one's going to be kind of relevant to this video, but Tuzaha Animations has done an incredible redesign of Godzilla Minus One called Godzilla Infinity, aka Omni Goji, and this is amazing. It's such a cool redesign of Godzilla. I could very much see Godzilla Minus One getting a redesign similar. I love exaggerating the elbow spikes. I love how the front of Godzilla looks so similar to Godzilla Minus One from the film. The chest has been amped up a bit, and Godzilla has a bit more of a Millennium style neck, which is cool. And I love the new updated dorsal spines, as they're sharper, they're scarier, they're meaner, but they also still have a very Minus One-ish quality to them. So I think something like this could be fantastic for a Godzilla Minus One sequel, as I do think Godzilla regenerating from scratch should result in Godzilla looking different than he did in Godzilla Minus One. Now, this was not fan art done for the sake of fan art, but this is a Godzilla redesign because Tuzaha Animations is working on a Godzilla Infinity fan film, and it looks amazing. He released this clip of Godzilla rising up out of the sea heading to this ship. Obviously it's not textured yet, but it looks so cool. The animation looks awesome, and I'm super excited to see where this thing winds up. It's incredibly high quality, and it has tricked many fans over the past few months into thinking these are images from a Godzilla Minus One sequel, so I wanted to spend some time shouting that out. This one's also going to be relevant later on, but Dairei showed off their Godzilla Minus One Lego construction built over the course of one full year. It looks amazing. The amount of articulation throughout the tail and throughout the legs, the body can twist and turn, the torso can turn, the arms can move independently, he can roar and look around. So incredible. You can even detach the top torso to have Godzilla more mobile without being attached to his legs. The fact that the face is as detailed as it is blows my mind. This thing is truly incredible, and you can just see how much hard work went into this thing. I also love that it's posed with the train in some of these pictures, as that is so awesome. This is going to be relevant in just a bit when we get to the merchandise, as Toho is releasing an official kind of one of these, and it's not as good. Finally, May 0556 shared this Godzilla at the Nippon Theater Diorama piece, with Godzilla with the train in his mouth standing next to the old Nichigeki theater, looking amazing. This diorama is incredible. I have no idea if it's homemade or was purchased. I don't know. I would love to know. If anybody knows, please let me know. I wasn't able to see on May's account if this was a purchased piece or handmade, but I love this Nippon Theater recreation. I would love to have one of these things, and I love having Godzilla displayed next to it. Incredible stuff. Getting into the merchandise, some metal figure magnets and pins were released featuring Godzilla Minus One, as well as a string of other monsters. All of these are done in the Godzilla battle line art style, which is very cute. I'm a big fan of the Godzilla Earth. There's a second Godzilla Minus One as well, which is really neat. Maybe that's Godzilla the Ride? I can't totally tell. Next up, Godzilla 1995 and Godzilla 2023 pen and keychain mascot things were released. I don't know what else to call them. There's like a keychain version of the torsos pose of Godzilla and burning Godzilla, and then they can go on the top of pens as well. A Godzilla Minus Color smartphone smart cooling accessory was released. I guess it's also an accessory for tablets. This goes on the back of your smartphone or your tablet, and all it does is essentially it cools down your device so that the battery doesn't overheat, so that first of all the battery lasts longer, and also so that your phone has a healthier life overall. Some Godzilla movie history canvas art panels were released. You could customize your own, picking your favorite Godzilla posters from over the years. To celebrate the Godzilla store Diorama opening up, some MyGoji bags were released. I think they look really nice, very high quality. I love the Godzilla font at the top, looks very 2014. And then obviously they've picked some really cool pictures of Godzilla Minus One to go on these things. It looks awesome. The Bandai Movie Monster Series Godzilla Store Limited Japan Godzilla Sakura color version was revealed. This is a $10 figure. Of course, this is in the smaller scale. These are the 5-inch Godzilla figures. They look wonderful. I love the pink, so pretty. I don't know, I'm very into it. Super 7 announced their Godzilla Minus One Super 7 figures, so there's more than we thought. They revealed a full blind box set coming to Targets real soon. This is in the Reaction Series art style, and these Godzilla blind boxes offer the chance to get one of 7 Godzilla Minus One figures. There's a standard Godzilla, a roaring Godzilla, a charged Godzilla, an atomic breath Godzilla, Godzilla with the train, and 2 more. Who knows what they are? Maybe it's like a Godzilla charred version and then like a pressure damaged Godzilla, or maybe they're special color variants. Who knows? But that's very exciting, and I cannot wait for that. If you want to get the Super 7 Reaction Series Godzilla Minus One, or any Super 7 Godzilla figures, or any figures Super 7 has to offer, please support this channel using creator code super7.com/kingofkings1954, as every purchase you make will give me a small commission, which is an incredibly helpful way to support this channel, and to get yourself a cool figure in the process. The Nanoblocks Godzilla 2023 was announced for August. It's actually very cool. They've done a really good job capturing Godzilla Minus One silhouette, and overall it looks pretty neat, but man, does it not live up to that incredible fan one we saw just a minute ago. However, I do want to say this one looks a lot easier to produce, and Nanoblocks has been releasing some other Godzilla figures recently, so this is a pretty cool addition. I'm very hyped they did this. These will be hitting shelves in August. Holy crap, this is one of my favorite Godzilla Minus One figures I've ever seen. Easy Hobby revealed their Godzilla Store exclusive Heat Ray Scorched Godzilla 2023. It stands at 13.6 inches tall and runs you $395, so way too expensive for me, but Godzilla getting all charred up by his atomic breath, it's one of my favorite visuals in Godzilla Minus One. It creates some of my favorite looks at Godzilla we have literally ever gotten in any of the movies. I love that moment when he rises out of the sea and roars with the chars all over his face. I love that kind of battle damage and consequence for Godzilla's atomic breath. Having a figure recreate that I think is incredible. I also love the smoke effect that comes off it. That is so freaking rad. There's so many wonderful details throughout the paint job here. This is an incredibly delicately crafted figure. I think it is so amazing. I'm very, very hype about it, and maybe someday the world will be gracious enough to me that I could afford one. To celebrate the opening of the Godzilla store Diorama, Toho released the Desktop Monsters Godzilla Minus One and a couple of Shin Godzilla exclusive goods, including keychains and little posters. Again, kind of in that battle line art style, which is, I think, a very cute chibi art style. The Godzilla shop Tsutaya satellite shops open up nationwide, and they are open through March. There's a couple of these bookstore Godzilla takeovers going on where you can get Godzilla figures and more. A lot of people have also noticed Godzilla figures aren't the only things you can get, as they're also selling Bandai Movie Monster Series Gamera figures there, which is very awesome. Awesome to see Godzilla and Gamera occupying the same shelves together. Maybe someday the two of them can finally cross over on screen. That'd be great. Getting into our Godzilla Minus One sequel updates. Is it a sequel? Let's talk about it. So following a screening of Yamazaki's film Juvenile, which was a 4K remaster of one of his older films, there was a little after show talk held in Tokyo in a theater. And at that talk show, Godzilla was brought up, and Yamazaki opened up about the next film. Starting out, he revealed that there is no title for the next Godzilla movie, so any titles you see online are false. And obviously I've acknowledged, like, Godzilla Minus 2 I don't think is going to be the title of the next movie. I'd be very surprised if it was, as Minus One had a real thematic relevance to it. I don't think Minus 2 would. You know, we're no longer in the immediate post-war aftermath, we will be in the post-Godzilla aftermath. I don't think that quite carries the same connotation, so I don't think the Minus 2 tagline would work. Godzilla Zero could be a cool title, but I could also see them moving in a different direction than that. But we're calling it Godzilla Minus 2 for now for convenience sake, so that people kind of know what movie we're discussing. This is what really is crazy. When asked if this new film was a sequel to Godzilla Minus One, Yamazaki admitted he's not allowed to say. Toho is only allowing him to refer to it as the new Godzilla movie, and he can't say much more for now. That answer makes me think, is it a sequel? I've talked about this for a while now, but there are rumors in Japan that it will be a Godzilla Minus One sequel, and that's what I'm counting on, especially because ever since Godzilla Minus One released back in 2023, Yamazaki has been opening up, actually it started in January 2024, about wanting to do a Godzilla Minus One sequel. I go through every single time Yamazaki ever discusses what he would do with the Godzilla Minus One sequel in my video, Everything You Need to Know About Godzilla Minus Two. And in that, we discuss that Yamazaki has wanted to do Godzilla Minus One sequel this whole time. And again, rumors from Japan that I've heard are that it will be a sequel, but there is some uncertainty being cast upon that right now, as why would he not be allowed to say that if it was? I don't know. I really don't know. He also doesn't say it's a reboot or a remake or an anthology. He doesn't say anything about it. Was that just because Toho is really strict with their contracts and the way they allow you to talk about their movies ahead of time? Probably. It very well could be a Godzilla Minus One sequel, but the NDA Yamazaki signed was so strict that he's literally not allowed to discuss anything about it other than that a new Godzilla movie exists and he is working on it, and that very well could be the reason for the ambiguity. That's kind of what I'm counting on, but I did think that was important. Also, this update comes from my buddy Dai-chan, who is wonderful with the Godzilla news and updates and reports. Dai-chan works around the worlds of Godzilla in Japan, although he's not working with Toho and is not working on the next movie, but he does exist in a much closer sphere to the next movie than I do, for instance. In his report, he says that Yamazaki hints the next movie will require a much bigger budget than Godzilla Minus One, and that a new form of Godzilla's transformation might be in the works. What this means, I have no idea. I think it could be very open for interpretation. On the one hand, it could mean that Godzilla's gonna get a new design in the next movie, maybe a Godzilla Infinity style design. I could very much see that because Godzilla is regenerating from scratch, so he should look very different. Also, you have to consider Toho likes merchandise. Toho likes merchandising. Having a Godzilla look consistent from one film to the next, while it might be nice for the story's perspective, it's limiting for the merchandising perspective. One of the reasons that Toho asked that Shin Godzilla include multiple forms of Godzilla, that Godzilla Singular Point include multiple forms of Godzilla, and that Godzilla Minus One include multiple forms of Godzilla was so they could merchandise both Godzilla and a Godzillasaur or other evolutions of Godzilla. In the next movie, if Godzilla appears and he looks the exact same as Minus One, well, now it's going to be a whole lot harder to sell t-shirts and to sell posters and to sell figures of a Godzilla who looks the same from movie to movie. I say because of that reason, guaranteed Godzilla will have a new design. It's just a matter of how new will that design be. Will they only make slight alterations between the two, kind of Godzilla 2014 to Godzilla King of the Monsters style, or will it be a dramatic evolution, kind of like Godzilla 2014 to Godzilla Kong the New Empire? I don't know. I guess we will just have to wait and see. It also could mean Godzilla goes under an evolution mid-movie. Maybe he shows up looking one way, something happens to him, and he transforms into a different state. Burning Godzilla or something like that. Maybe the next time Godzilla gets battle damaged, it stays through the rest of the movie, so that there's like a version of Godzilla who's clean and not scarred up, and then a version of Godzilla who's all battle damaged, like that Easy Hobby figure we were just talking about. That could also be another route they go with it. I'm very curious to see what that means. It could also mean something more thematic. A new form of Godzilla could mean there's a tonal change coming. You know, it could mean that the movie's not a sequel to Godzilla Minus One, and so it'll be a brand new version of Godzilla introduced to us for the first time. The fact that it's so ambiguous is making my head spin. The film is currently in the storyboarding phase, and while making the storyboards, Yamazaki says he's getting a grasp of just how much bigger the budget for this film will need to be, and the scale will need to be, than Godzilla Minus One was. This is a far grander project. It's got a lot more ambition behind it. I personally believe that the reason that's the case is because, as Yamazaki has said since, I think, February 2024, he wants to introduce an enemy monster for Godzilla to fight. And having an enemy monster for Godzilla to fight, first of all, means you're going to need to model a brand new monster. You're going to need to create a whole new design for a monster, but it also means your action sequences have to be taken to the next level. As Godzilla can no longer be knocking over a building, he has to be throwing a monster into that building. Maybe there's destruction scenes with this other monster and Godzilla separately before they're brought together. By having two monsters, you need to dedicate more screen time to developing each monster in meaningful ways, and therefore the scale and scope will get bigger and bigger. One thing that's very important to note is that if storyboards are being done and Yamazaki's grasping the budget, that means the script has to be fairly close to locked, as Yamazaki's not going to be storyboarding for no reason. He's going to be trying to wrap his head around the action sequences in the script, and so while there's no confirmation that the script is locked, I think we're in a pretty good position where the script moving forward is probably going to need to undergo limited revisions. Dai-chan released a special report on Godzilla Minus One, and I think he is right on the money as always, so I want to talk about that. First of all, he goes over the history of Godzilla films and how with Toho, there's typically a 1.5-year production period for each Godzilla film, about a year and a half of production from pre-production to release of the movie. Starting out with Shin Godzilla, there was about a year and a half. With Godzilla Minus One, it was sort of similar, although COVID extended that date, as Godzilla Minus One technically started being worked on in 2019, and they were kind of looking around the 2021-2022 release date, and then obviously it wound up in 2023 because of the pandemic, but he goes all the way back to the Showa series, to the Heisei series, and to the Millennium series to show that generally, on average, there's about a 1.5 year production period for Toho's Godzilla films, which means we're looking at the Godzilla film next year. He discusses all sorts of possibilities from the next Godzilla movie coming out in 2028, as we know it cannot come out in 2027, as it needs to avoid the same calendar year as the next Godzilla Kong movie from the Monsterverse, which leaves us with the options of before or after 2027, and how Yamazaki has obligations here in the United States with J.J. Abrams' company to produce a US movie. That needs to be done rather soon per contract, and so as a result, Takashi Yamazaki's Godzilla movie's gotta come first and will probably come out in 2026. As he discusses, there is growing uncertainty about if this next movie will be a Godzilla Minus One sequel. He is starting to have some uncertainty about it as well, but he says a big reason that Shin Godzilla didn't get a sequel was because Toho knew they just simply couldn't make it. The time had passed. Toho had to wait for the next Monsterverse movie, which at the time Shin Godzilla came out was eyed for 2018, with Godzilla vs. Kong coming out in 2020, and didn't really leave them a ton of time, especially when King of the Monsters pushed its date back to 2019, which meant that they were going to have to wait until 2021 to release another Godzilla movie. Eventually, COVID wound up happening and GVK got pushed to 2021, and so one of the main reasons we didn't get a Shin Godzilla sequel is that Japanese fans would have had to wait from 2016 until 2022 at the soonest to get a Shin Godzilla sequel, as after 2016, they wouldn't have been able to get a movie out in 2017, and they simply could not have predicted Godzilla King of the Monsters to move to 2019, so they just simply did not have the time to do it. There was no time. The time was not right for a Shin Godzilla sequel, and as he discusses, Toho does not want that same problem with this next movie. Toho wants to keep the momentum rolling on Godzilla, and because of that, that does lend credibility to the next movie being a Godzilla Minus One sequel, as you want to keep the momentum that exists around Godzilla Minus One, the Oscar-winning Godzilla film, the film that is beloved internationally, and that there is huge support to a sequel to, so much so that you brought back Takashi Yamazaki as the next director. And if you don't want to lose that momentum, you're probably not wanting to lose it because you're working on a sequel to Godzilla Minus One. Otherwise, Toho could have said, we're not doing a Godzilla Minus One sequel. The next Godzilla movie's in development and it will come out after the next Monsterverse film. And then we would know around 2028, 2029, we'd get the next Toho Godzilla movie, and it would probably be a non-sequel to Minus One, another anthology film. As Toho has done the Millennium series before, it does set the precedent that maybe this Reiwa series could be a series of anthology films, but I'm not counting on that. Neither is Dai-chan, and pretty much everybody I've heard from Japan believes that this movie is going to be a Godzilla Minus One sequel, so I'm still in that camp at the moment, but I guess we will have to wait and hear, because we could all be shocked by another anthology film. Maybe Yamazaki is making the Godzilla vs. Hedorah movie he said he wanted to. Maybe he said, it's my time to shine, and I'm gonna do a Godzilla vs. Hedorah remake because I can't do a Minus One sequel. Jury's still out. I believe we will know sooner rather than later. I think that this summer we're gonna find out, especially because shooting should begin this summer, so we'll probably find out sooner rather than later if it is a Godzilla Minus One sequel as the cast starts to appear for this next movie. But I think that Toho's gonna be very tight-lipped about it, as they always are. Like, Godzilla Minus One kind of popped up out of nowhere. They announced it randomly one day at Godzilla Fest, and we had no indication they were going to be working on it before that. Godzilla Singular Point popped up, surprising even industry experts. So Toho likes to keep things very tight-lipped, and I'm very curious to see where things go from here. Alright, what are your thoughts on all this? I'd love to hear down below. Please comment and let me know. As always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. It is through the support of the patrons on Patreon that I'm able to make videos like this for you. If you want to support the Patreon, it is the most direct way to support this channel, and through it you can get early access to content, access to the Discord community, and more. Links in the description below. If the Patreon's not your thing, that's alright. Maybe you could consider joining as a channel member, as you can get exclusive perks. Either way, I'd really appreciate if you could like and subscribe, as we're so close to 100,000 subscribers, and I'm very excited to hit that mark. Thank you guys all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you all next time for the next one. D-Man, out.